or you just get your phone, put it in your trolley knows what you want and just takes you there.
That's a good idea, Joel.
Give away your bag.
Fantastic.
No, it's just
That's not
copyright.
that right, you see.
Trademark or something.
Find a park. Well, it's going to be all those numbers like they do at the airport now anyway. Like
Find the short checkout line.
It flashes up. We've just driven in and it's.
Maybe you try this.
Yeah, the ones that are pretty
Smart
smart.
trolley.
Yeah,
Wait
like
times above the checkout line.
Oh, do it?
Yeah.
Car parks are available.
at the airport.
No, Burnside.
Oh, do they? Yeah. And yeah.
And then you've got to raise the length of the line. Well, it's.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Like they do.
Because you can see.
Like
It's
how
like,
they
oh,
crack
don't
down
go
the
down
stuff
there,
like that,
there's
it's got
car
to register for
parking.
it.
Yeah,
that's
that's
right.
right.
Yeah.
It's not like
Three green spaces to the left, 20 spaces to the right.
Oh, I love
And then it seems to drive in.
Like
A
a
bit of a
airport.
vision
Yeah, that's
scale.
amazing.
That's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have a little lights thing so down there. Quite useful. Drive to shop, choose which shop for what. There's only one shop, but so drive to the shop.
Well, this shop's so good.
That stuff falls off the shelf at 10 o'clock every night.
What is this we started doing? And I don't know if it or not, but when I was testing,
You could have
why not?
you can have a scanner on your trolley and you can tell it what things like cookies gluten free, so she could say no gluten and you could scan
Give
Oh,
you-
store companion.
trolley
Yeah.
and if they contain ingredients there's one that's gonna let.
I'm just thinking, you start judging people, she's got a green
Just to
trolley.
see.
She's got the blue trolley, she must be a vegetarian.
You
said that.
Buy the trolley, yeah, trolley. But if you're a regular shopper there, then they should remember the type of products that you have and
Yep, they're
have a
seen
little
comparisons
screen
or
on the
price
trolley.
match at
It will
control.
control all the things that you
Normally
buy.
Have you ever seen Refreshable Braille? It just pops up and comes down, pops up.
Oh, wow.
Getting.
I'm thinking when Vicky checks into the supermarket, it rearranges itself to Vicky's thought patterns.
Oh, that's
So all the
awesome.
things she
Yes,
needs
that's
are going to be
right.
in our one.
Yeah, cool. Yeah,
Flashes
good.
up on you.
Oh, yeah, that's very good.
5 more minutes, guys. Just 5 more minutes.
What do you call that? Refreshable.
Supermarket.
Brainwaves.
Telepathic
It's
supermarket.
Yeah, that sounds
the
good.
base that messes with your schedules and stuff.
At the beginning.
So, and you only let one person in at a time. Then you have a huge
Delivery.
No,
Check that
word.
word, so that's, gets,
Digital native.
yeah, that's, so you would get an update like
A digital native is a person.
email and
Yeah.
everything, like every day you get an update.
What
about
would
it.
cover?
Well,
No,
no,
you just walk into the shop, so
you're
instead of funding all of this crap.
If we've only got
we go
5
send it
minutes
home
in
and
it.
But,
do it.
yeah, okay. But,
Give it
they've
yellow
already
meat.
left home.
I like it.
We've only got 5 minutes.
Okay.
mini con.
Map out where you are.
Minion. Have you ever
Oh,
seen
a minion.
You know those little yellow?
And yes, and it's.
Oh, the yellow,
So
there,
you
okay.
Just
there
look at
on
me.
the-
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
maybe I'll see someone
Yeah.
spend that.
Map out where you want to
Yeah,
go.
when you get to a certain point.
Because I always
Yes, get
Well, no,
so,
what we say, what we said earlier is, as we
your
put
trolley
in,
will take you where it needs
The
to go.
stock.
but a scanner
If
on
you,
the
your
trolley
shopping
and
list is
scan
connected to the stock of your
So
local
you know exactly
supermarket.
what you
So if you want gluten-free
And you
spaghetti
don't
and
have
Foodlands
to worry
out,
about
it'll
because
tell you to go to
you'll
Woolworths.
Oh, yeah.
It's already connected to the stock in the store.
Yep.
Yeah. like my Chinese gluten-free noodles, they only don't have them, but
Oh,
I
right.
go to Coles down at
Oh, have you?
and they'll have them.
Oh, it wasn't me then.
It's basic that.
I get one every time.
Need goods.
Except they always bring me up. Well, I think Tom got it. Take one of
We've
those
got
there.
that.
You have now.
Get the trolley that works.
Maybe you need to get a trolley
You've
assistant,
got
a
a
store
store
assistant who
Did you make
does that for you.
Yes.
So you collect an assistant as you come through, he's got their
Oh,
own
they're
trolley.
waiting for you when they give you a trolley.
No, they don't give you a trolley, they walk around with you.
Yeah, that's
They
an
assist
assistant.
you.
bags.
And then
I
Will
know
they
that's
run
right.
it?
Yeah.
Couple?
Yeah.
Enter the shop. How do you get rid of entry?
You get it delivered. Already has a box or bag, but.
The shop comes to you.
Yeah.
People if you need.
Find a car
The
park.
fridge will
You're
look
allowed
like
to say you're going to get delivered.
Legal
I'll
I'll
make
make
something
something
to
to
the
the
shop.
Yeah, so
We've already used that. So we can't use
Someone
it.
picks you up and drops you off.
Yeah, go ahead.
Chauffeur?
Chauffeur.
Maybe instead of where it says get trolley, enter shop, maybe you could enter the shop and then an assistant like Ed was saying, comes and gets your list at the trolley and does it for you.
Yeah.
While you go have a coffee.
Now,
Yeah.
drive to shop. Maybe the shop could be in a location you don't have to drive.
Drive through.
So you go
and
to the train
you know,
station.
like this
shop
needs to
there.
be, you know, like it's on your fridge, you know, like if you're interested in this is like a digital shopping list on your fridge.
Yeah.
Could have something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
That just attaches itself to your fridge.
Well, every time you take some out of the fridge or out of the cupboard,
You scan it.
it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it tells you
Yeah,
that
yeah,
that's
yeah.
gone now.
Yeah, yeah, good.
Choose the nearest shopping
Can we,
centre. Ah, damn.
Yeah.
We've just used it.
Well, your phone will tell you. Just have an app on your phone.
And that, well, we've already used it.
Oh,
I'll do
But we
that.
can have another
Do that
app.
one there, and I'll do
Multiple apps.
select projects. I'll
This
put
one.
over there, scan.
So one will be a locator and one will be a.
Yeah.
Vegetable.
What is the-
Stop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's totally different.
See, that's a stop app.
apples and.
Android. This one's an Android app. This one's an Apple app.
You know, choose fresh projects.
You can do it, that's a stop, that's a locator, that's a code, a map, you know, the travel map.
I'm doing
Chelsea
like
closest
self-service
store.
anyway. Yeah.
And do you have a PLU code for like your organic apples and your
We're only making a list. Actually, and that, and even better, like that will talk to the store, so you know how much you're gonna need. You know? So you're scanning it off your fridge and then you cupboard and you're going,
Yeah.
oh, I need 260.
But we're not actually going to need them now because the
You
choice
can-
box.
But we don't
You can
know
have
that.
you can like find my phone,
Put in your shopping
find my bags.
An app, another app,
Or your pockets actually turn into shopping bags.
or your shopping bags, those.
Inflatable?
Inflatable, yeah.
and in Aston.
Or wearing
And they're in the car,
Your shoes.
and they're always in the car,
And it's at 24,500.
Yeah, wherever.
Very James Bond.
and they're in the glove box.
You have to take them back. There's no way. You're gonna eat all like they're really fun dinner. I said yeah, that is a really
Especially
because I did it well online. So and she didn't even think when she paid. Do you know what I mean? And then when she was like,
Because
oh
you
my
close
god,
and you
you
put
don't
it
even
then you're in
put it.
Oh, no nude shopping.
and
Only on the internet.
I was just like,
Work out what you need. We've
said he
already got a
kept it for a
smart
day.
fridge.
Yeah.
What else you could have?
yeah, we're working for
Yeah,
They're gonna redo
Have
it.
recurring
Exactly.
It happens again.
What about
Like
just a list that would scan everywhere?
And
Oh,
he's
like
done it
Yeah.
on
scan
the
the kitchen and
job.
it would work on
He's wired for the
So
rest of the day.
It'd be like pressure sensitive, so when
Yeah.
you lift up a can of tomatoes, oh, it's not there anymore.
Okay, guys, that'll do. So, I've got two minutes to go. Just ignore
Shopping, electronic
Now,
shopping.
if you're doing this for real, this particular technique, you're getting time boxing. You know, I'm giving you more time to do it because it's the first time out. But when you're doing it with people, time box it, otherwise they'll get really stuck on one and go anal about it and trying to figure it out and stuff. Exactly like you guys have done. If you get stuck on one, just move on to the next one. You know, don't sort of sweat it. Because some would have to be so out there, and then the last thing you want is somebody to teach, oh, that would never work because of X, Y, and Z, you know, just move on. Because what you're trying to do is just build. Now what you've got here is what we call an innovation landscape. Now yesterday we discussed, just before you did your presentations, about offering say 3 options. We don't do anything, we do a little bit, or we do what we're going to recommend that we do. Bear in mind when you're doing this, if you've got 31 and you've got 31 suggestions for elimination, you've got 31 alternative things you could implement. So even if you're only implementing one of them, right? It's better than not implementing anything. So you've got what we refer to as an innovation landscape. And some things are at the top of the mountain, and other things are still down in the valley. But you've got loads of choice about how you might put a potential solution together, right? So I mentioned yesterday when I was talking about possibility P's and problem P's, this idea Apple had of that sort of implant. Of course, that's way out there, but hey, in 5 years' time, that might be an option. It might not be an implant, but it might just be like an electrode you can stick on the side of your head if you want to do that. All the technology is available now. It was available 5 years ago, and it might be much more within our expectations because we've been trained around using smartphones and so on. It's difficult to think. If you went back 8 years, 8, 9 years, how did we keep in touch with each other? Well, we use phones. But when your emails, you go to your PC or your desk or your laptop or whatever, right? Whereas now we just take for granted that we can be in touch with everybody all the time. That's how quickly things have changed. Difficult to remember what it was like before then. Now I'm old enough to remember when my career started, we still had typing pools. And it used to take, you'd write it out and then you'd send it to the typing pool. It used to take a week to get it back, right? And then you'd have to sort of check it again, and invariably there'd be, one or two misunderstandings because your writing wasn't as neat as it could be or whatever. So you'd send it back down again, and then a week later, 2 weeks to send a letter. So I bought a thing called a Rare Black Box, which was an ICL machine. So it was CPM for the coders in the room. It was coding. CPM, it was like really sort of early version of DOS, but it worked on a control program for micros. So I got that and I programmed it. What I didn't know I was doing was creating a word processor. God, I wish I'd have known that. But what I did was started doing my own letters, and people said, "Why are you doing that? You're really expensive when you compare with the price of somebody who's cheap in the typing pool." Because it takes a week for me to communicate with anybody, and I realised, and you don't actually think about it, but most of us are like that. What we're trying to do is find shortcuts all the time, so that we can be more effective.
But wouldn't you have to write it all down to give to the typing pool? So by the time you wrote it all down, or dictated it, you could have typed it.
No, what I discovered, my idea wasn't to create a word processor. My idea was to be able to type things out, print it out and give it to the typing pool so they would make typos in terms of understanding the writing.
Oh, so
and
they
I thought
would
if we
still
could get
type
everybody,
it.
yeah, that was the idea. If we could get everybody doing it, and then I printed it off and I thought, well, why would I send it to the typing pool then?
Yeah.
Right? So we then did some research and invested in some font technology which made the fonts look decent rather than coming out. It was American typewriter fonts originally, which these things used to produce, and they were dot matrix printers as well, rather than impact printers. We weren't using we were using dot matrix display writer machines, IBM display writers. But we managed over a period of about 12 months to justify the not needing the typing pool. But the resistance we got amongst the executive team, well, I'm going to do my own typing. This came with a load of baggage and stuff.
I was
Now-
seen as beneath them though, wasn't
Oh yeah, they did, yeah. And I used to enjoy the typing pool because I was a young guy in the 20s then, and that was part of the reason for going down was... But that's another story. But the whole point of that is that we sort of think, we wouldn't meet that resistance now, would we? You meet it every single day on everything that you do, where people just are very comfortable and familiar with how things were, and they don't like the change. Somebody once said to me, the only person who likes change is a baby. Right? Everybody else doesn't. Right? So now you've got your innovation landscape, and it gives you the ability to choose. Well, how we drive that choice is really around Triple Crown. So again, what we're going to have is the 3 columns: service cost and revenue. Right? Or you can have revenue costs. It depends which way you want to do it. All right. Put the 3 columns. You don't have to do 3 columns because you can just mark it. And then again, just as we did yesterday, go through each one and look at each one completely as a singularity in its own right. And if we implemented this, would it improve service? Tick, no, cross. Would it reduce costs? Tick, no, cross. Would it grow revenues? Tick, no, cross. Now at this point as well, you might have Triple Crown Plus, so you may have another column which is plus in the real world, which is, for instance, I'll give you an example. At the time, when Apple were doing this, brand value is very important to them. Now you can attach a value to brand, but it's not an easily quantifiable thing. It's a calculation you've got to do. So they said, for instance, will this moment of truth, elimination, improve our brand value? Yes or no? So they factored that in. Now, plus might be, for instance, it could be regulation. Will this help us meet the regulatory requirements, plus or negative? Get the idea? So what I would like you to do, you can start at the top now, all right, and do your 3 columns. Don't bother with the plus column because that's over-egging the cake today, right? And let's do it against service cost and revenue. So a cross is negative, a tick is positive. Right? Think of it over 12 months. Right? So if you, for instance, got a technology investment, will we recruit that investment? All right? Because initially any technology is going to be a cost, but will we have recovered that investment? So I'm going doing that and do your first 15. Your first 15.
One of them got
Colour pen?
Yeah, we better.
What do you want? Want me to do it?